Good morning, everybody. If I could have your attention, please. You're all very welcome. My name is Frank O'Mara. I'm the Director of Teagasc, and a big welcome to everybody here in the room and also those who have joined us online. So, you're all very welcome, as I said, to Teagasc. This is one of our research centres. We call it Teagasc Ashtown. It's part of our food programme and also part of our horticulture and forestry programme is carried out here. And we're delighted to welcome you here this morning and delighted to host the 2023 Euragri conference. Just a little bit of housekeeping for you first. Please put your phones on silent. In the event of us needing to make a hasty exit, there are emergency exit doors to the right and also down the back of the room and out through the way that you came in. Hopefully that won't arise. I'd also like to bring to your attention that we are videoing this conference. It is being live streamed, parts of it, and as you can see we have cameras around the room in various places, so there will be shots of the audience. So I'm telling you this now and assuming we have your permission to use your image if it appears on some of our audience shots. If you have a problem with that, you better leave, I suppose, is the only option at this stage. So that's really all the housekeeping. So look, Teagasc, most of you probably know what Teagasc is for some of our visitors. We're the state organisation which is responsible for education, for advisory work and for research in the area of agriculture and food. And those three functions make us maybe a little bit unique compared to many other research organisations that are represented here today on our various organisations in Euragri. We think it gives us a great strength to have research and extension or knowledge transfer in the one organisation, and we very much try to operate in what we call a Teagasc Together mode, where we harness the power of research, the power of advisory work, the power of education together on the big problems that we have, and we feel that by putting those three functions together we can actually make greater progress on the issues of the day. Obviously, sustainability is a huge challenge here in Ireland, as in all our countries, and that sustainability in all its three dimensions of environment, economics and social. And for us, our aim is to put sustainability front and centre of all we do, and to contribute the research and knowledge and education and advisory component of delivering on the national strategy for agriculture and food, which is called Food Vision 2030, which has the aim to make Ireland a leader in sustainable food systems. And that's very much around the theme of this conference here as well. So there's many aspects that we focus on in that sustainability work. Chief among them is climate change, and we launched a strategy, a Teagasc Climate Action Strategy in 2022, which does combine all our resources into helping farmers to tackle that issue. Other big issues for us are water quality, biodiversity, obviously, but the incomes of our farmers and having sustainable livelihoods is also a huge challenge. So rather than me tell you a lot about what we're going to do, we've prepared a short video about Teagasc, and it'll give you some sense of maybe the activities that go on across the organisation that support that goal of improving the sustainability of Irish agriculture and making us a leader in sustainable food systems. So Declan, if you could play the video there, please. So hopefully you got some sense of the activities that we have ongoing across the areas of education, of advisory and of research, tackling some of the big issues of our time. And you would have seen in that some shots of some of the big investments that we have made in research infrastructure, including a network of flux towers or eddy covariance towers to measure carbon sequestration or emissions from our soils. We have probably the biggest network of those facilities across Europe for a country of our size, and also some of the investments we've made in green feed equipment to measure the methane emissions of animals in the field. And as you probably know, our animals spend most of their time in the field, so it's very important we can track their methane emissions in that situation. And you might have also noticed a screenshot of what we call our Signpost programme, which is our flagship advisory programme to support farmers to take action on their farms to tackle climate change. Anyway, that's Teagasc, and we're not here to really talk about Teagasc. This is the Euragri annual meeting, and Teagasc has been a part of Euragri for many years and is very committed as a small research organisation in a relatively small country on the edge of Europe. We're very committed to working in collaboration with other like-minded organisations across Europe, and therefore Euragri is an important vehicle for us in order to help further those collaborative links. So we're delighted, as I said, to host the conference here today, and I'm going to hand over to our president in a moment. But before I do, I just want to acknowledge the work that my colleagues have put into the organisation of this event on behalf of Euragri, and that's Ciara Johnson and Declan McArdle. Declan is down there running all the video and the audio-visual for the event and the live streaming, and has put a huge amount of work into it, and his assistant. And Ciara, as I said, has done a lot of the logistics, and Paul Maher as well, our head of international affairs and strategy, also put a lot of effort into it. So look, I'd like to thank all those and the people locally who have organised the venue here for us. Declan Troy, who's the manager here in the Ashtown site, and his team have done a lot to get the place ready for us today and to help feed us over the next 2 days, which is going to be very important. So look, Owen Carton is a former colleague of ours as well, the new General Secretary of Euragri, and Owen has obviously put a huge amount of work into organising this event. So I'm ready now, I think, to hand over to you, Jerry. Jerry Boyle, former Director of Teagasc, my predecessor in this role, has been President of Euragri, I think, for about 4 years. Jerry, would that be right? Whatever it is anyway. And again, Jerry has been very committed to the aims and objectives of Euragri, and delighted, Jerry, to welcome you here today now to take over and chair this session.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Frank. Well, as Frank said, my name is Jerry Boyle. I think Bettina will probably know, I think I've been President for longer than 4 years, but as you get older, it's more difficult to remember exactly how long. And I was privileged for over 14 years to be Director of Teagasc. And I thought, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, and to those of you listening or viewing online, those of you that are members of Euragri will know, I'm sure, what we do. But essentially, we see ourselves as a network for research performing organisations in Europe. And the key word there is network. And while we address topics that, such as the topic that will dominate the proceedings this year, that are key themes in several conferences at several different levels across Europe and wider afield. Our particular focus is to try and understand how research performing organizations, whether they be research institutes or universities, how they will respond to these challenges. And that's essentially the focus we try to bring. So in that sense, we think we offer a potential unique approach that's different to what might appear on the face of it, a similar themed event. So our approach is very much on network. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we haven't had a face-to-face event until this year. So we've missed out on several years where we can have the kind of engagement that does appear to be most productive despite our use of virtual media and so on. And I'm delighted to see a number of faces that I recognize here today. And I do believe that by engaging with each other, we learn. And that's certainly my experience from participating in Euragri events over several years. That conversation after dinner or over coffee or whatever about how a different organization in a different country approaches a similar challenge, because increasingly the challenges we face are very similar, although maybe manifest in different ways. And it's through that dialogue and exchange of views, I think, that we can really learn. So the theme for this year, and I think it's going to be a theme that's going to dominate the agenda for several years, deals with sustainable food systems. In fact, we addressed this issue previously, both in workshops and indeed as a topic for a previous conference. And really what we want to do today and tomorrow, or what we want to focus on, is the challenges that addressing food as a system, which I think we all agree it ought to be addressed as such, but the challenges faced by research performing organizations in doing that. How do we embrace system research within research from a design and management point of view? That's essentially what I see as our objective over the next couple of days. And increasingly, as we all know, research has become highly specialized. And to some extent, that specialization sometimes can present an obstacle to addressing the research challenge in a holistic way. We all can accept, as I say, that when it comes to food, that we need to embrace the research challenge from the soil right through to human nutrition. And of course, that inevitably brings in issues in relation to sustainability, climate change in particular. So when we talk about sustainable food systems, then I think we're trying to determine the appropriate balance between food production, the climate challenge on the one hand, and protecting and preserving and recovering our natural capital. And as I said earlier, there are several conferences that deal with this theme and aspects of this theme that have been held already this year. And a plethora of organizations have rightly prioritized this topic, including the Forum for the Future of Agriculture, the One Planet Network, the EU Agri Research Conference, the Global Research Alliance on Greenhouse Gases, and of course, many events organized by the FAO. And these have been hosted very successfully. But again, I think it's important that we stand back, those of us that work and or have worked in research organizations, and ask ourselves, how can we respond in terms of how we create and manage our research programs to this challenge? And that is a different focus to the conferences that have been held and will be held into the future. So specifically then, what I hope you will get from today and tomorrow's proceedings, it's the next step from our previous conferences and indeed workshops. And we want to, first of all, inform participants of the latest international EU and national sustainable food systems developments. Secondly, we want to facilitate participants sharing their experience and knowledge in developing research and innovation responses to these challenges. In many cases, those responses will need to be disruptive for research organizations. Many research organizations lack the capacity, for example, to respond in that holistic way to these challenges, and that capacity will need to be developed. We want, of course, to look at how the circular economy and the preoccupation with circular economy principles, how that can be integrated into the wider concept of a sustainable food system. And as I say, hopefully learn from our interactions about how we can successfully embed a systems approach to our research. So before I finish, I just want to express some thanks, first of all, to my former organization, to Teagasc, and particularly to Frank O'Mara, Director of Teagasc, for agreeing to host this event here. I want to thank our General Secretary, Owen Carton, and I'm glad to say that our longtime Secretary is with us also today, Bettina Hyman. Many of you will have met Bettina over the years. And I must say, in a short space of time, Owen has done a fantastic job. And most importantly, the key metric is that he's taken away a lot of work from myself, which is probably a good thing. I want to add to Frank's commendation of Declan McArdle and his colleague Ciara Johnson and also Paul Maher. Declan is responsible for mounting this whole audio system and the live streaming of this event over today and tomorrow. And that's no small job. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of expertise. So Declan, we're really, really appreciative of your efforts in that respect. I'd also like to thank, and it would be a serious remiss on my part if I didn't, we have an important sponsor for our dinner tonight, and that is FBD. It's a farmer-based insurance company, and they are hosting the dinner for us tonight, and we're really appreciative to them for that. FBD is an unusual organization in that it was established by farmers for farmers, and they maintain a trust fund which they invest in research activity entirely, and they're never found wanting in supporting research activity at all levels throughout the country, and we really are appreciative of all of their efforts. It gives me great pleasure now to invite Uno Svedin, who will, and again, many of you will know Uno. He's been a stalwart member of the Euragri board for several years, and is a tremendous thought leader indeed, not only for Euragri, but for research and innovation in general. And he will be the moderator of our first session. And Uno is attached, of course, to the Stockholm Resilience Centre. And again, that's an exceptionally well-known centre throughout the world indeed, and which is part of Stockholm University. And Uno himself is a senior researcher, and he says retired professor, but I'm never sure of that. I don't know what retired means in Uno's case. So Uno, delighted for you to open the first session. Thank you.
Thank you. So, many also from my side for the first session, the opening of this conference. Welcome, and not only to you who are here in physical sense, but also to the Zoom participants. And this duality between you being physically here and those on Zoom has also the impact for both the speakers and also for the listeners and participants here. I would also add this warm thanks not only to myself but also to many others, and also mentioned with gratitude to Frank O'Mara and Jerry Boyle, you just heard. And thank you for the effort of bringing us here together. And that brings us to the topic. The first topic of the session is sort of setting things as a background, and the sustainable food system is the name of the game. And it's not just a trick to have something to be said in the beginning. It is really heartfelt, the major issue for Euragri. Hopefully also for the wider world, because it's the interlinkage between all the bits and pieces that we have to handle. The first session basically is a very ultra-international one. It brings us with people from the UN, in this case the FAO, and also 3 speakers from the EU. So we have a wide range of views from these international platforms. We will conduct the morning session in 2 packages, 2 before the coffee. Those of you who are on the Zoom, you will cook your coffee yourself or being served. Here we will get it. So there must be a little difference between the physical presence and Zoom. And then we will round up with 2 sessions. So now we will start, and then the word goes to the FAO side. And Dr. Tiensin, who is on the Zoom line, and we will probably see him. Here he is. He's a national of Thailand, and he holds a Doctor of Philosophy and Master of Sciences at Veterinary Epidemiology and Economics from Utrecht University in the Netherlands, and a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from University in Thailand. He is now currently the Director of FAO's Animal Production and Health Division, and this gives him good background to tell us as the first speaker. And he's also the permanent representative of Thailand to the Rome. We all know that the headquarters of FAO is in this fine capital in Italy. And he has also lots of stuff behind him. A former acting Assistant Director-General and a senior expert in Thailand's international livestock and veterinary policies, and he has worked as regional project coordinator on the smallholder dairy development programs in Bangladesh, etc., I would say. And it's just to give you the first speech of our full conference. And we are looking to both personally, but also the FAO idea about this. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and very good morning to Dublin from Rome. And thank you again for...
I think you have to wait a little. You don't know what is happening in Dublin. We will have to fix the technicalities. And there is thumb up. Please.
Everything is okay now? You can hear me loud and clear?
Yeah.
I hope so. Okay, very good morning from Rome to Dublin. And also thank you very much for the invitations to speak at the conference organized by Teagasc for agriculture and food development authorities, together with researchers, farmers, producers, and also policymakers there. Last year, I just visited Dublin when we organized the Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock Multi-Stakeholder Partnership meeting in your countries. And that's why to have an opportunity to talk with all of you again is very nice. Unfortunately, I cannot go there in person, and that's why today we will meet virtually. And also I hope that within 20 minutes I can entertain you a bit about my talk, and also please feel free to ask any question if you have. As moderators and also Mr. Chairperson already mentions about food system, and all of you know that in 2021, when the United Nations organized the UN Food System Summit, which at that time I was one of the advisory committee of the UN Food System Summit in the capacity of the chairperson of the Committee on World Food Security, CFS. We know that after the summit, it just last July at FAO, we also organized the stock-taking exercise to follow up from the Food System Summit. And that's why at FAO, during the World Food Week, which actually is a birthday of FAO on 16th of October, during that week, FAO organized the World Food Forum that we would like to bring the three components to talk at the World Food Forum. One is about innovations, science, as you mentioned earlier, that we need more research, we need more innovation and science for agri-food system, how to do better, how to produce more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. And the second issue that we would like to ensure that we can continue to get more investment for agri-food system, for agriculture development. Because now in terms of investment is decreasing in many countries, even though maybe some country less than 1% of GDP, when we're talking about investment on agriculture development or agri-food system. And the third component that the World Food Forum would like to promote, the role of young people, young producers, young farmers, young entrepreneurs, young businessmen, young private sectors, who would like to invest their time and energies to produce food for people. And that's why my talk, I would like to focus on the outcome of the FAO, the first ever FAO Global Conference on Sustainable Livestock Transformation, that we just organized the first conference on sustainable livestock transformation at FAO in Rome on 25th to 27th of September. What we discussed, what the outcome of that meeting. As you know very well, organize the meeting, we will have many people to come to join the meeting. During that time, we have over 800 people from 96 countries, 17 ministers and high-level representatives from different countries, representatives from non-state actors, farmer producers, organizations, private sectors, and so on. Especially, we have more than 150 young people from 40 countries to talk about their future, to talk about the futures of livestock sectors. And more than 15,000 people join us virtually. Especially that we could manage to bring your Minister of Ireland, Minister of Agriculture, and also other ministers from different countries to talk about the sustainable livestock transformation. Livestock has been criticized. I know that in your country as well is always have a lot of complaint about many issues related to livestock farming, livestock system, or agriculture development. But we need to make sure that we also talk directly to the policymakers about the issues, and we will hear more what we discuss. But one of the issues that we need to talk about the futures, because now the issues that we are facing in every country, young people don't see the futures. If they want to become a producers, farmers, or if they need to work in agriculture, if they need to work in livestock farms, how are we going to make sure that our young people have future, have better future? And during that times, your minister also have a chance to have a dialogue, a discussion with those young people. And during the meeting, we organize whatever side events and bring people to discuss so many issues around livestock sectors. But when we look at the outcome that I will explain you later, what's the outcome that we received from the Global Conference on Sustainable Livestock Transformation. But we would like to ask ourselves what really meet the objective. We really raise awareness of the contribution of sustainable livestock production. We really use these platforms, forums, to share information and knowledge and direction and futures of livestock sectors or agri-food system, because livestock is a part of agri-food system. And we also make sure that we really identify the priorities, how we're going to do more and more to achieve sustainability. Before I continue my talk, I know that you can recognize easily the Irish farmers and also colleagues from Teagasc during my visit. I had an opportunity to talk with colleagues there during the visit. And also before I took the office, I had an opportunity to talk and discuss with many European farmers, even though I remember in 2000, around 2003, 2004, 2005, when I worked in Netherlands. Farmers have a lot of visions, dreams, and future. But today, they have to ask themselves whether they are a problem or they are part of solutions. Why people who are producing food for us, to feed us, ask this problem. There's something happening in terms of policies, in terms of whatever, that we need to challenge ourselves. How are we going to support them to continue producing food more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable? How they're going to produce more with less impact. This one is a challenge that we need to do, especially for the European Union. Also have some other policies that also have an impact. But when you look at other countries, other regions, during my visit at the World Dairy Summit in India, the Prime Minister of India, who are working in Gujarat for many years as the Chief Ministers in Gujarat state in the west of India, or the capital of dairy sector in India. The future of India, the future of Indian farmers, the futures of small-scale dairy farmers there. It seems to be everything have a blind future and have more actions, more investments to support producers and farmers, how to produce more with less impact, how to reduce the environmental impact, greenhouse gas emission, and so on, how to improve the animal health service across the countries. It's a commitment, and that's why just last July, FAO, together with the government of India, we organized the International Symposium on Sustainable Livestock Transformation. Over the next years, we will talk about sustainable livestock transformation. We need to transform. We need to do more. We need to do better. If you go to Africa, if you go to Latin America and elsewhere, we have heard a lot of good news. Our producer, farmers, and livestock is a part of solution, even though in the dryland area, in desert, in the harsh areas, because livestock is a solution in those countries. As all of you know that when the global population is increasing every day, and by 2050, we are expecting to have 9.6. We need to feed 9.6 billion or almost 10 billion people around the world. Even though over the past decades, over the past 5 decades, we can produce more and more. But in many places, it still cannot produce enough. Or even though in terms of animal source food, some countries produce more, consume a lot. But in some countries, in terms of consumption, is very low. And we are expecting that by 2050, all the animal source food will increase more than 20%. Especially in Asia, in America, and also in Africa. But in Europe, maybe it's a bit stable or increase a little bit. But livestock sectors have a lot of challenge that we need to continue to work and also to transform the sectors, because we have heard a lot of complaints, we have heard a lot of noise, but we need to admit and we need to commit as well what we can do more to reduce the impact. And also we need to talk with we need to listen to our consumers, customers, and policymakers and activists, what they have particular concern, what the sector have to do in terms of animal welfare, greenhouse gas emissions, pollutions, deforestation, biodiversity loss, and other issues, antimicrobial resistance, and so on. But in the meantime, the livestock sector still continue feeding people, especially in developing world, in the global south, that the consumptions of animal source food, milk, egg, meat, which actually is a nutritious food for young people or even the adults and elderly people. Because in most countries, the consumption is very low. And that's why you still have a lot of issues of all form of malnutrition. But in different regions, different countries have a different situation. Or even though now we're talking about hidden malnutrition here in Europe or somewhere else. And that's why we are looking at the contributions of the livestock sector to the SDG when we're talking about livestock sectors, how livestock make contribution to inclusive, sustainable economic growth, which many countries also livestock make a lot of contribution to economy. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to join the bilateral meeting between Director General and the President of Zambia. And Zambia is one of the countries that produce animals and agricultural products to feed their neighboring countries, Congo, Malawi, and others. It's a their challenge as well, how to make sure that they can feed other countries while we are facing different challenges. And the livestock sectors that make contribution to others in terms of producing animal source food for better nutrition and health and well-being of people and livestock, that make contribution to ecosystem, to be part of the ecosystem, to make sure that we can produce with less impact and also livestock sectors that provide equitable livelihood for people in the rural area. It's not only in the developing country, even though in the developed world as well. For example, if you go to the country in the north that have just only 2% of land that can use for agricultural activities, and among of 3% of land, 2% is a grassland, that it's just only cattle can eat grass and produce milk and meat. And that's why it's about how to balance the issues, how to address the issues properly. And that's why when you're talking about sustainability, we always talk about the 3 dimensions of sustainability in terms of economic, social, and environment. But you can see that each country, each region have a different focus. Some country may put more effort on economic, on environment, or more on social. Maybe some country can make a better balance, but we know that all the country have a different priorities, have a different problem, have a different needs. And that's why it's really, when you're talking about sustainability, it's a country's regional context specific. And that's why after as I told you, during my visit in Dublin at that time, we know that our producers and farmers, they don't have any chance to talk and echo their voice. But we know that they try their hard, very hard, to produce better and to produce with responsibilities, to produce with less impact to our environment, to this planet. All of them are aware, but they didn't have a chance to echo their voice. And that's why when I returned from your countries, we started to discuss about sustainable livestock transformation initiative with the visions how sustainable livestock sectors can satisfy the global demand for animal source food and other animal products, contribute the benefit equitably, and also distribute positively to the environment while using natural resources efficiently. When we're talking about the roadmap of success for sustainable livestock transformation, we have heard a lot of noise. Sometimes we have heard a lot of bad news about livestock. But we also need to build the science and evidence-based narrative to advocate for sustainable livestock. Many countries, many sectors are doing something about sustainability framework for your sector, for your countries. You have a sustainable pathway. But we need to showcase, we need to highlight, we need to communicate what is a science and evidence-based narrative. We need to have a balanced narrative. We are not offensive, but we need to show the facts. We need to show the information to publics, consumers, policymakers. And also the second pillars for the key success and roadmap, how to promote the adoptions of the good practices. During my visits in Ireland, I have seen a lot of things ongoing in your countries and also during the visit that you have a roadmap, how to reduce the greenhouse gas emission, how to increase the biodiversity loss, how to increase or to reduce the nitrogen overload in soil and water. And that's why we need to scale up. And also the expertise, knowledge that you have must be transferred and scaled up in other countries. We should not repeat the same mistake. And also at FAO, as an international organization, we can support in terms of policy development and also increase the responsible investment that we can work with the bank, we can work with other financial institutions, with philanthropic agencies, how we can support the countries. Or even though the rich country also can support the low-income country and middle-income countries, and how to integrate all the work around livestock sectors. We don't talk just only when we go to the farm. Farmers talk about benefit. how they can get better profit, how they can survive. And that's why all the package that we are working with our consumers, farmers, and the countries need to integrate all the issues around livestock in terms of animal production, animal welfare, animal health, environmental health, soil health, to make sure that we manage the trade-off and we can work through the One Health approach. And that's why at FAO now, we established the new unit called One Health and Disease Control Unit, that we can address more the issues of One Health. And also at the end, after the talk, we need to take action. We need more action. We need more innovation. And that's why the work that Chaka and also other research institutes around the world can help us to bring new innovation, to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, to improve the way of working, to the way that we are producing much more efficient, resilient, and sustainable. And also to make sure that each sector have its own pathway, have its own sustainability framework. And we need you and we encourage you to share your success story, to keep the public informed, to keep consumer informed. And that's why when I talk with farmers, many farmers say that now I need to open my door, my farm gate, to welcome to consumer, to see how I produce. How can I keep my calf? How can I keep my cattle? How can I keep my pigs and chicken? And also we also need to build trust.
I think you can round up with a minute.
It's almost done. And that's why the outcome of the conference, we will continue to work on sustainable livestock transformation initiative. We will establish the sustainable livestock transformation digital platform, increase investment, and also others. And we need the decade of action for sustainable livestock transformation. And some of the action, follow-up action has been taken already. We start with the regional conference on sustainable livestock transformation in Thailand. We have the national dialogue on responsible investment for sustainable livestock in Laos, in Kenya, in Senegal, and others elsewhere. This one is some of the activities that we are doing to make sure that we continue working on sustainable livestock. We need bold action. We need a digital platform that can share all the success story. We can support the country to develop the action plan and policies, and also to continue with sustainable livestock transformation initiative. And also just last week, we talked about animal feed safety. We need to continue to talk with private sector more and more. And even though next years, even though it's not really related to your region or your countries, but we will have the International Year of Camelids that people in different countries also need our support. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this excellent presentation by yourself and FAO. We are grateful. And I was also personally touched by your entry example from India, going as a youngster to Bihar with its very dry conditions. I was in parallel to your presentation, thinking about those times. So all is needed, and this is looking forward. Thank you quite a lot. But stay, because we will have two questions, I think, the one in the physical and one in the... And we take both questions. So who is interested in posing a question here in this physical Dublin auditorium? It's not a necessity for you, but it's possible. Then how is it going with the Zoomers?
There's one question there, if we can pose it.
You have someone who is interested in posing a question?
There is one question, yes.
Okay, so let's hear the question. We take the Zoomers. You are Zoom presenters, and now we have a Zoom question. We will see what happens. Please.
Yes, the question is around how to achieve multiple but sometimes opposing sustainability goals as they relate to the livestock sector?
It has to do with the livestock session, obviously, so please go ahead and see if there could be a response on that.
So thank you very much for your questions. And that's why each country, each sectors need to set your priorities. And that's why when I show you the sustainability 3 dimensions, each countries may have a different need, have a different priorities. And that's why all the sectors and also the countries need to set your priorities and need to set your goal, how you're going to achieve. When you're talking about environmental aspect, what is your goal? And also when you're talking about social aspect and economic aspect, what is your goal? What you're going to walk through to achieve that goal? And that's why we need to set our goal, and at least we know the pathway and the way that we're going to achieve. And that's why it's the same as in your countries, that you also set your goal, how you're going to reduce the emission, how you're going to reduce the overload of nitrogens in soil and waters. I think this one is also will help us to speed up, to scale up the work to achieve the goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, and thank you a lot. If you can, you're most welcome to attend also the rest of this morning in the session, if you want. We very much appreciate your input from the UN and also your personal experiences of this very important domain for transformations. So many thanks. And also thanks for your response to what we heard as question from the Zoom audience. Thank you. And we, by the way, we have definitely an applaud. Thank you. I hope you hear the applaud from Dublin, applaud to you. And now we go over, and now we have a physical presenter. Fabio Cossu. He is now the first in the row of 3 persons from the EU. So now we go to the EU side. And the EU structure is quite elaborated, and different parts of the EU have different types of functionalities. I think it's very appropriate to listen to someone from the DG Agri, very important for our concerns. And he is a policy analyst from this policy perspective unit. So he's really very well suited for us to present sort of a view from the EU and especially from the I think that I was just rounding up here. He has previously was a policy officer for the European Innovation Partnership for Agriculture Productivity and Sustainability in the DG Agri's Research and Innovation Unit. So you get a little background, but it's better that he presents his views. You are here for that, and now you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, also from my side, and I'm glad to be here in presence, and I'm glad to be in Teagasc premises. In my past work, I managed to work with a number of brilliant colleagues from the organization, so I'm happy to be part here of the team, at least for today, and thanks also to Euragri and Woven Cartons for the nice invitation. So I think introduction were brilliantly done, so I'm moving forward to, I will jump into the subject matter of my intervention this morning that, as requested by the organizer, will focus on the role of the EU Common Agricultural Policy in delivering and promoting sustainable food system. And I will, in fact, would like to open with a bit of introductory remarks to make, let's say, a call for why it's important that we speak about resilience and sustainability when it comes to our European and also global food systems. Let's just think that, I mean, the economies, our societies are permanently, let's say, shaped by long-term driving forces that are already, you know, okay, we can already touch now, but that will likely to have a greater impact in the distant future. In the Commission, colleagues from the Joint Research Centers analyzed 14 of them. They call it the megatrends. You might have heard them. And if not all, most of them will also have long-term impact for agriculture and the food system in Europe and globally. Some of them, and these are just an example, stand particularly out because, in fact, we can feel that their transformative power is already acting now. Think about, for example, shifts in geopolitical strategies and power balance that, in fact, ignites wars close to home, with repercussion also for our food chain and availability of input, aggravating resource scarcity, climate change that causes droughts and floods in the past years and months. These were on the newspaper almost daily. Increased cost of life that comes also with increase of cost of production for farmers. So these are all significant and short-term, let's say, drivers that cause crises that actually are already impacting our EU food systems, which is responding quite well, in fact. Despite this crisis, we haven't experienced food shortages in the EU, so food production is quite well. However, we started also touched some issues regarding food affordability, at least for certain strata of the population. So the whole concept of food security is not granted. So we say the resilience of food systems is there, so the capacity of shock, especially in the short term, but cannot be given for granted. Of course, in this situation, we need to keep tackling short-term crises, but we cannot avoid to continue to work to the long-term sustainability foundation of our food systems. And the Farm to Fork strategy, so the European strategy for sustainable food system, which is the heart of the European Green Deal, exactly does this. So it has embraced the triple challenges of the sustainable transformation of European food system that are asked to deliver sufficient quantity of food for citizens, but doing it in a way that systems take care also of the environment and leave no one behind. So meaning that there is a fair redistribution of income across the supply chain. The agricultural sector is, of course, a pillar of EU food system, so it is embarked as well into the sustainable transitions, and the Green Deal target and the Green Deal, and the ensuing strategies have set also some political ambitional targets, on which I have to say, if you follow discussion this day, we might not all agree on the quantifications. We might not all agree on the pace of this transition towards the target, but we definitely agree on the direction of travel. So we have a strategic framework in place. We have the direction of travel, and the third thing that we need, of course, is instruments and support when it comes to supporting and fostering this sustainable transformation of the agricultural sector. And this is where, of course, the common agricultural policy comes into play. So the reform CAP that is in place since this year, starting this year up until 2027, has been built with sustainability at its core. And it has given the possibility, so it has provided member states with policy tools, all the new, so key instruments to support this transition and have asked member states to think strategically about the use of these tools around 9 specific objectives that covers all the 3 dimensions of sustainability, plus an extra focus on what we call the cross-cutting objective on knowledge, innovation, and digitalization. So we are 1 year now into a successful implementation of CAP strategic plans, because the new CAP started this year in 2023. So it's too early still to harvest, let's say, the results of their implementation. But we can, and this is what I'm going to do in the next slides, in a bird view, let's say, approach, we can already say something about, by looking at the choices, the programming strategic choices of member states about their, in a way, their ambition with the new common agricultural policy when it comes to achieving these 9 strategic objectives. I have selected some indicators at European level, and I will not have the possibility to go much in depth, but I also take this occasion to inform you that today, as I speak, in fact, the Commission is publishing a report to the European Council and European Parliament on the joint effort of a member state CAP strategic plan in achieving the strategic objectives and objectives of the Green Deal, and that is supported by an extensive study which has mapped and analyzed strategic choices and intervention logic of member states. So I cannot provide a link to you right now because I don't know where the link is actually, but I will be happy to share with the audience later. So I will touch upon first the environmental dimension of sustainability, how CAP strategic plan support actions towards addressing this. And here as a preliminary remark, but I'm sure you know this quite well, it's worthwhile to remember that the reform CAP comes with what we call is a new and green architecture, whose bedrock is in fact what is called enhanced conditionality, so rules and requirements that come attached, so they are mandatory for farmers to respect in order to access to direct payments, so income support under the first pillar, on top of which we have voluntary schemes of different nature, eco schemes set up by member state mandatorily, but voluntary for farmers, and climate and environmental commitment under the pillar 2, that are again voluntary for farmers and that allow them to go a step further in their sustainability, environmental sustainability ambitions. And when it comes to funding attached to this instrument, of the whole CAP funding enveloped, so we are talking about total public expenditure, so EU co-financing and national financing. The 32% of this of CAP funding goes, so is targeted to instruments that support the environment, climate, animal welfare, and of course the lion's share is eaten up by eco schemes and agro-environmental climate commitment, but there are, and it's good to note, other interventions that contribute towards these objectives. For example, green investments, so productive and non-productive investment that happens on farm and off farm, like investment in agroforestry, water storage, and infrastructures, and the preservation of the natural landscape that contribute to the same objective. But even more important is to remind that behind this 32%, 50% of this budget is attached to basic, let's say, conditions for good agroeconomic practice, which has a key role in mainstreaming or key sustainable farming practice across the board. And the importance is linked to the fact that this conditionality in the end applies to almost 90% of the EU farmland. And this, I think, is an aspect that often in the narrative is underestimated. So here are some data, and I'm happy that it shows, for example, when it comes to member state efforts into addressing climate action, we see here that CAP strategic plans make a considerable effort into sequestering carbon in the soil. To this extent, one of the conditionality rules, for example, those that requires the preservation of peatlands and wetlands, contribute definitely, on top of which it comes also voluntary schemes through eco-scheme, agro-environmental measures, and which let's covered around 35% of the EU farmland. To a lesser extent, but still important, is the contribution of the CAP strategic plan to reduce emission, actually to improve climate adaptation, for example, through supporting the use of water resistance crops and varieties. When it comes to the sustainable use of natural resources, here it's significant to notice a very much increased effort with respect to the current period, and to supporting voluntary practices that improve the quality of soils. These voluntary schemes and commitment covers almost 50% of the EU farmland. Equally interesting and as significant as a contribution is the contribution of CAP strategic plans to a more efficient use of nutrients, so voluntary schemes that relate to nutrient management, covering almost 50% of the EU farmland, and most of the same practices that are supported here has also beneficial effect to water quality. Water quantity also is something that is addressed through CAP strategic plans intervention, especially in those regions that are suffering more and more from droughts and effects from climate change. And this happens and are realized specifically through investment into water storage or more efficient irrigation systems and so on. And last but not least, the 26.6%, so almost 27% EU farmland is subject to a commitment that lead to a sustainable use of pesticide, or that contributes to reduce the use and risk of pesticides. Here again, there are certain basic conditionality rules that help streamlining these practices across Europe. For example, crop rotation that help to set up for example, integrated pest management strategies, but also other voluntary schemes are very important that support the use, for example, of biocontrol or precision farming. And then one of the most significant contribution of the CAP strategic plan to environmental sustainability comes also from the share of farmland supported by the Common Agricultural Policy to maintain or convert land into agricultural farming. Here, the share of agricultural land supported, so covered by such commitment, has basically doubled with respect to the current period. So it reaches around 10%, with, of course, quite wide disparities and targets across member states. But this needs also to be seen in the wider context of actions that are implemented also at national level through a national organic plan, and that actually has the aim to stimulate the whole supply chain. This was just one dimension of sustainability, and touching upon now quickly on the other very two important dimensions of sustainability, the economic and the social one, because we can talk about as much as we want of implementing sustainable farming practice from the environmental angle, but this will never be possible if farms and farm business are not also economically viable and sustainable. This is why the income support tool under the Common Agricultural Policy continue to be a pillar of the CAP support. They maintain agricultural activities in Europe, and this is, I mean, it's worldwide to notice that in 2020, almost 23% of the farm income derived from CAP support. So it's not a surprise that the main income support tool, what we call the basic income support for sustainability, play a significant role and account for almost 1/3 of the total CAP funding. But again, it's important to remind that this support comes with strict and enhanced environmental conditionalities attached to it. A point to note here is also that this income support function also as an income stabilization tool, which is absolutely critical in time of multiple crises to hedge off the risk of income volatility. But the CAP strategic plan also allows member states to use more targeted instruments and tools for risk management, albeit all but one CAP strategic plan allocate less than 2% to these instruments. So here we can say that more work needs to be done. And finally, the current CAP also focuses on addressing wider societal challenges. Here I'm referring to animal welfare, 27 CAP strategic plans, so all but one provide support for greater animal welfare through a combination of measures, also reflecting and addressing recommendation that the Commission moved into this respect to member states into early 2020. So you can see that 23% on average in EU of livestock unit, European livestock unit will be supported by voluntary schemes that contribute to, for example, the animal welfare. So, concluding remarks, because my time is running out, but I think I'm still on time. So we spoke about here about the role of agricultural policies and agricultural sector into promoting, moving forward the sustainable transition of food systems. But of course, this is not the job that can be done only by agriculture, only by farmers, only by the common agricultural policy. This is the approach set up, in fact, from the Farm to Fork, which promote an integrated approach involving all actors in the food supply chain, but all actors at the different governance level. So everyone has a role to play in delivering sustainable food system at different scales, cities, region, member states, at European level too. And here, in fact, I think we've been leading as example, because the whole conception of the Farm to Fork, but also the delivery of flagship initiatives has been based on very strong collaboration with also the Commission department, especially with DG SANTE and DG Agri in many of the files. And this is an approach, of course, that given the complexity of the challenges ahead for sustainable food system, will continue to be in place in the future. When it comes to agriculture and the future of the common agricultural policy, well, this will be actually responsibility for the next commission that will come into place next year. But as you know, surely our President, Commission President von der Leyen has launched in September the idea of a strategic dialogue with farmers, with citizens, in order to listen to diverging voices around the future of agriculture, setting a common vision, and also to take stock of what has worked well and less well, and see what are the other pieces of the puzzle that are missing and on which we will need to work together. This dialogue is about to launch. We ourselves are waiting for more information, and the details have been hammered in these days. But we are ready to engage with the public in this dialogue and with all the stakeholders. So that's why I leave you with a call, if you are interested in, from the 5th of the 8th of December in Brussels. DG Agri will organize the Agri-Food Days. They revolve around a major event that is our annual Agri Outlook conference. So it will establish a conversation with stakeholders about the future of agriculture. And we'll also have an interesting discussion about the role of digital in promoting the resilience of agriculture sector and rural areas on the last day. Colleagues informed me that registration is still open, although I think that in-presence availability for the 6th of December is gone by now, but the event will be web streamed, so I warmly invite you to check the links and look it up on the internet to find a spot if you like. And with this, I conclude. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much yourself, and at least it's a little like looking over the shoulder into the December event in listening to you. And I think that you have very nicely guided us in the intricacies of the vast EU system that is, by the way, of course, course target for Euragri. And I smiled when seeing that some of the patches of the actorships are indeed Euragri. CAP is important for us. It has been important for us earlier in the Euragri, and we will continue to look carefully to what is coming up in the evolving types of actions that come from the suggested actions in the EU system. And you have so nicely guided us. Let me say that we will take a chance for, in keeping really to our program, someone who wants to say something, putting a question. Immediately. Lovely. So that's the first, and we will see if we have a chance for the Zoom after that one. But we take this one and the answer immediately.
Thank you. So thank you for your presentation, really informative. You mentioned at the start that resilience was going to be a very important, feature of what the CAP was trying to achieve in the future. How do you think research and advisory work and education of farmers can and will contribute in the future to building better resilience into our agriculture and food systems?
Yeah, keep doing the work that you've been doing right now, basically. But all the knowledge base that comes out from agricultural research and the way we translate it into innovation as a fundamental role, actually, to increase what I call the sustainability foundation of resilience. I think we've been planned for decades. Agricultural research was set, at least at European level, an agricultural research agenda that already tackles, in fact, anticipates many of the challenges that we are facing now, including, resistance to climate shocks, research into looking into plant varieties and breeding, the sustainable dimension of livestock, emission reductions, sustainable nutrient management, precision fertilization agriculture. So these are all pieces of the puzzle that will need to come together in order to ensure the long-term resilience of agriculture. So there is no new trick. I think that the key issue here is really to make sure that load of new knowledge and innovation that we've been developed in the past year until now, it's quickly deployed on the ground, because this is what farmers are asking us right now. This is why sometimes tensions arise when politicians come with ambition targets, and there is a lack probably of perception that solutions already exist on the ground, that many farmers are already using it, but these are not widespread. And this is actually the challenge with capital C, that research and innovation need to tackle right now.
Let's see if we have, you have nicely collected, and we give a chance. There is a fairness aspect also to this. So please, who would you select for the question, the one question from the Zoom.
Yes, one question. If we look at the food system as a whole, how to better integrate all actors and give greater power balance along the chain?
Could we listen to who was saying it? Is that available?
That's anonymous.
Anonymous.
Yes.
That's okay also. It's less anonymous here, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, well, there is no single bullet. I mean, we've been talking about engagement from several different angles, establishing dialogues, for example, between citizens, consumers, and the other actors of the supply chain, especially farmers, because there is urgent needs to understand each other in order to move forward. We have been listening from President Omar about this before, but there are also local initiatives. Example are food councils that are mushrooming around Europe, so that as this function to bring together people and work also with vertical integration, vertical projects, so to bring together the different actors of the supply chain. So there are multiple ways to bring people in to work together, and multiple examples already available in Europe.
Thank you. And with that, we thank you once more, heartfully, and sort of more updated, if we would say so. It's not that it's the first time we have heard things like this, but it's very good to be updated. And this is the type of instruments for updating also in Europe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we are going to the next. I see Claire is there, which is very nice. This is exactly what you want to see as chair. And you will continue this row of contributions from the EU. Now we have heard the initial presentation, and now you are number two, and you are Deputy Director-General in DG Health and Food Safety in the SANTE, and responsibility for food sustainability and international relations, and food and feed safety innovation, health and food audits, and analysis and crisis preparedness in food, animals, plants in SANTE. I guess that it takes a full workday to handle that, and that you probably also work nighttime, I guess. So now we will get a little teaser of what it means to have that vast responsibility. Most welcome.
Thank you very much, Uno. Thank you very much. Indeed, it's a bit of a mouthful, I think, no? But if it can be said more shortly, my work revolves around food safety and food sustainability. Yeah, but it's really, I'm sorry not to be there in person as I had originally hoped. I was hoping to come and see my colleagues in Grange on the same day, but we're rather busy here now because it's the end of coming towards the end of the legislature of this parliament. So we have plenty of files that are very active at the moment, and I'll come to that in a minute. But I'm really grateful to have been invited. It's very nice to take the floor alongside two of my commission colleagues as well, as I think you mentioned, Fabio and Karen, and also with the FEO. I see Thanawat there, who I've met in the past as well. So it's very nice to see all of you. And a big thanks to Professor O'Mara and Boyle for inviting. So what I thought I would do, Udo, is say a few words about where we are in this Farm to Fork strategy, a few general comments about the political situation, then a quick update on some of our legislative proposals, and then trying to look forward a little bit to see what we should be doing in the next mandate, perhaps, and how we can work towards that. And of course, hopefully leaving plenty of time for questions. So first of all, I think the organisers said, tell us where you've got to on this Farm to Fork strategy and what things look like. So I think, as I mentioned, we are in the last push on some of the existing legislative files and coming with a few more proposals now before December. But the time for conclusion is now limited because we have the European Parliament elections, of course, in May. And I think we've all been watching very carefully what was happening in elections across Europe this week. So I think we will all be doing so as well when we come towards May in terms of seeing what the new Parliament will look like. But until we get there, Ursula von der Leyen, in her State of the Union address in September, said that the Commission is still very much committed and ambitious for the Green Deal and its implementation. And as part of that, the Farm to Fork strategy, which, as you know, is the blueprint for greening the agri-food chain. I think we all are acutely aware of the fact that the challenges from climate change and biodiversity haven't gone away. We have the COP going on as well in a few weeks' time, so it's still top of the agenda. And in terms of what happens with our food production and the areas that you're all interested in, the changes in climate change, I think, are a very stark reminder to us about how much human health and animal health are interconnected and how much we need to work so that we can have a more sustainable food system. I think I want to say that a lot of Farm to Fork has become about targets, but it's not really about the targets. Obviously, that's about setting political ambitions, but it's about how the different initiatives fit together. It's about how we do legislation, but also non-legislative initiatives. It's about how we finance the change. This change is obviously very difficult. We see it in the ongoing files, and we see it in the political polarization that's happening around that. And I would say I think there's been very broad agreement on what we should be doing in terms of what was identified in Farm to Fork, but there isn't really yet agreement on how and when we should do those things. So next, a few words about where we are on the pending legislative proposals. First of all, one area which I think is of interest to you as well is the new genomic techniques, which offer a lot of potential. We think from the Commission's perspective, we've assessed this and we see that they can really help bring on stream seeds and plants which are better adapted to dealing with climate change and the evolution of pests that we're seeing. So the Commission has made a proposal for a new regulatory framework, which we hope will facilitate the development of those techniques. We've had to try and strike a balance between the precautionary principle, because the techniques are new, but also the potential that we can have through those techniques and having a better risk assessment, which is proportionate to these new techniques, which are not, as I'm sure everyone in the room knows, they are not as such the same as the GMOs, because they don't involve the use of foreign DNA. What we're talking about is the gene editing, so we need to adapt the way that we assess the risks there. And what we see at the moment is that in the development in the pipeline, and I've seen it myself as well in visiting member states, that already in the research labs, there are new types of plants coming along, drought-resistant tomatoes, maybe that's the most important, but blight-resistant barley, blight-resistant potatoes, and so on. And those in the labs want to get those into the fields, and I think we need to facilitate that evolution. Otherwise, we will stay behind in terms of what's happening with international developments, and we want our industry and we need our agriculture to be internationally competitive. I'm happy, of course, to talk in more detail if there are questions about what's in the proposal and how the authorization procedures will be adapted. But obviously, that regulatory side of it is important, but it's not all of the story, because alongside that, we need the research and development, which Karen is going to be talking about, and we need beneficial investments, both from the public, but the private sector, but also, and I think this is where Euragri comes in, we need a clarity for the public and for those involved in agriculture in terms of what these techniques involve, what the potential is. And I think that the work that you do on sustainable innovation and communicating that is massively important for us to be able to bring to fruition the various proposals that are on the table. I want to mention briefly, and again, I'm happy to go into details if there are questions. We had started work on sustainable use of pesticides, trying to reduce the use of chemical pesticides. Alternatives such as those that might come through the NGTs are an important part of that story, but also biocontrols are important there, and making sure that we have alternative biocontrols which come on stream. This negotiation has been very intense. It continues. Those of you who are Brussels watchers will have seen yesterday that the Parliament voted down the report that had been prepared in the Parliament. This is not the end of the story. The Council is still working on it. The Commission's proposal still stands. But this is a moment where we have to take stock, I think, and see what's happened there. Again, the difficult polemical political situation is not helping us, and of course there's an issue of how much we can deal with that pending the elections now in May. There is one other proposal which is on the table, which fortunately I think is less polemic, which is food waste. The Commission has proposed to member states to set targets in line with what we've committed under the Sustainable Development Goals to cut food waste. It's part of a bigger proposal on waste in general, which involves textiles waste too. So that means that obviously that all needs to move forward together. But it's been welcomed by the co-legislators, and we need to make some solid progress, I think, on that in the next few months, and we hope that we'll be able to. And in the meantime, there are a few proposals still pending on animal welfare. Again, we had a much bigger legislative revision which was being prepared, which had 4 legs to it, as you would expect, of course, on anything to do with animal welfare. But part of that, now it has been decided that the part that will move forward more quickly is that which deals with animal transport, because there's been very significant citizens' concern around that. And before I move to what happens next and look into the future, I should also mention, because I think initially when your programme was set, we talked about a proposal in the framework for sustainable food systems. Now, the Commission has not moved away from the fact that having a systemic approach to food is very important. We can't just look at the different parts of it separately. This is very much a part of the farm to fork strategy. So we are still considering, we've had input from stakeholders on that, but because there is a limited legislative window that's still left, the Commission, I think, will not be coming with that proposal until the next legislature. So looking ahead, as I said at the beginning, I think there's broad agreement about what needs to be done, but not necessarily exactly how and the when. Part of that stems from this complexity that we have in the food system. In September, Ursula von der Leyen, the President, said she would launch a strategic dialogue on the future of agriculture in the EU. I think this is obviously something that you will very much want to have your eyes on and see what happens and see how you can input into that. It will be looking at what happens in the next Common Agricultural Policy. It will be building on what has been in Farm to Fork and the Green Deal. Of course, it's not going to replace all the existing forums or initiatives that we have. It will complement the work that has been done, but hopefully it will bring together a wide range of stakeholders, civil society, citizens, but also all those who are involved in the industry, and organizations like yourselves giving input too, so that this will hopefully help us to move to more sustainable innovation. We need more communication and engagement, that's clear. As I said, I think your role in that is crucial in terms of educating and informing. And I think that hopefully if we can work together through that dialogue, we can move from polemics to progress in the next 5 years. Thank you.
So many thanks for this insightful presentation, and especially regarding, you could say, unsolved businesses sort of hanging in the system. And if we compare it with the presentation just before coffee, very nicely on the scheduled machineries of the CAP, for example, and the associated issues. My feeling is that your presentation is taken, of course, that for granted, and then what are the more implicit but still striking and important things of movements that is necessary to handle. So there is a complementarity from the two presentations now we have heard from the EU in the sense of where you put your emphasis in your didactics rather than the content. So wouldn't you agree that there is something to my observation there?
How can I not agree when you put it so persuasively and eloquently? No, no, but I think we are talking about complementary issues. I think obviously the CAP has its own timescale, its own programming, and so on. But what we're talking about in Farm to Fork, or the continuation of that, is how the other policy initiatives complement the work that's done on the CAP. And I think probably, I mean, I don't know whether Fabio would agree, but I think we are going to have to work towards more complementarity as we move forward if we want to achieve our objectives.
I have here one asking for the floor, but I have a little linking to you, Fabio, in responding to my comment, but you can think about it when we hear so you have more thinking time. So please, you, yes, you are the only one. And the only one. Please make a presentation of yourself. Who? I think it's a little weak, isn't it?
Hello, can you hear me now?
That's
yes, hi.
Good. Now we hear you.
Thank you. My name is Mark Gibson and I work in the Knowledge Transfer Directorate within Teagasc. I attended a conference a number of months ago where there was an assessment presented of the Green Deal and the EU Farm to Fork strategy, that it would have the impact on food production of a 15% reduction on food production across the EU. And I'd like to see, would that be a shared assessment within the European Commission? And if so, what are the strategies to try and address that, given that there may be that reduction in food production, for example, if we do see a much wider growth in organic production across the EU?
I hope you heard the question, so I give you the chance of addressing that, and Fabio has still some little thinking time. I don't know if he needs it, but
okay,
that's
so the men obviously need more thinking time than the women in this discussion, no? No, okay. So thank you, Mark, for the question. Yes, I mean, how long have we got to discuss this now? Because it has been very much debated in terms of, in particular, for example, if I take the use of pesticides, what the impact on production would be. And obviously it became a very live topic because of what's been happening in Ukraine and the food security concerns and so on. So the Commission's done extensive work, and I don't know when the conference took place, but subsequently in the summer we published further analysis in addition to the impact assessment that was done because that was asked for, about what the impact on production will be. But I think you have to look at the picture in the round, which is, of course, if we reduce pesticides, there will be some transition costs in terms of the farmers adapting to the new alternatives in terms of their production. But if we don't do anything, then if you just look at what climate change and the biodiversity loss is doing, in any event, there is going to be loss in production. No? So I think we have to be careful. We have to be careful about what we're analysing and what we're saying, and we have to look at it in the round. Now, what we found on the pesticides was that that moving over to more biocontrol, I mean, obviously the process has to be gradual. It can't happen overnight because we simply don't have the alternatives across the board. I mean, as I was saying, we're hoping that the new genomic techniques in part will help. Then on the biocontrol, we have some for some crops, but as far as the arable crops are concerned, there is still more that needs to be done there. The impact actually of moving to biocontrol would be more on some of the crops where we would be less concerned in terms of food security as such. But it has to be a gradual transition. We have to make sure the alternatives are available. But if you want to go back to, exactly how much the percentage could be in terms of reduction of production, we can't just look at what changing on pesticides looks at. We also have to look to the medium to long-term considerations about the impact that climate change and biodiversity loss are having.
Thank you. But now you mentioned and selected the production side. I would guess, but this is my feeling, that it's the conditionalities for the production. So what do you say about that? It's a little broader than the production itself.
But what do you mean by the conditionality? I mean, are you talking about, maybe just explain a bit more, what you mean by conditionality?
It could be the legal structure, as you have your background in the legal structure, how the movement of the legal structure is going, how the financing structure for the production is going on, and so on and so forth. So the contextuality of the production. What would you say about that?
Well, yes, of course. And but I don't know, maybe this is when you want to bring Fabio in as well, though, in terms of what happens with I guess he's presented the eco schemes and so on in terms of what's happening within the CAP. Alternatively, and this for me is one of the things that we need to look at going forward, because if the regulatory framework changes, then we have to recognize that the transition also requires perhaps additional sources of financing. Now, what we've been trying with the colleagues from Agri to do is maximize what comes from the CAP for that. Personally, I think there's going to have to be more private financing in the transition as well. And there are various mechanisms that are in place around that at the moment. There is work on how investors can make decisions around the sustainable work that's being done by companies and so on, the sustainability reporting, but also this taxonomy that we have about how you categorize what kind of investments are going to be made and where they will most benefit the green economy and so on. But I think this is one of the areas that we have to work on going forward. So I think you're right to say it's the conditions that are contextualizing the agriculture, but I think it's also, how we're looking to make the public and private financing work together in a more in synergy, let's say, going forward.
Thank you very much but you also understand that my question was building a little bridge now to the CAP. Yeah. And you understood it all the time, I guess. Yes. You smile in the right place.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Do you hear?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And,
so now it's your
very, very good to see you on the big screen.
So what do you say about what happened after your own presentation?
I totally agree with what Claire said. How could not agree with a Deputy Director General? This is an inside joke. But no, yes, definitely. I mean, we are asking an awful lot more from everyone in the actors in the food supply chain, and recently we've been asking an awful lot more from farmers, and we keep doing it. So support is what they're asking us for, and support was they get through the Common Agricultural Policy. So before I already show some objectives also with respect to a more sustainable use of pesticide that are pursued to the current Common Agricultural Policy through the strategic programming. Will this be enough in the future if requirements change? We'll need to see. Definitely, I don't think we can expect money actually to be realistic to grow proportionally to all the multiple requests. So we will need to be smart to find a way to accompany this transition. So as Claire said, it's a question also cooperating together across the agri-food chain to help farm deliverers. As I said also, we have already solutions that work, but not always these solutions are applied on the ground, and there's a lot to catch up again, and here again calls upon organizations like Euragri to help us in this business, because we really need to accelerate the speed of innovation deployment. So to link up to the previous question that you had about the future CAP, which I'm not comfortable to talk about because it will be a business for the next college, but definitely, as we said, the Farm to Fork has set out, let's say, a new movement that bring us towards more sustainable food system as a whole. So all hands on deck, I would say. The CAP is already participating fully into this transformation, and in the next round, of course, we cannot avoid to keep thinking about this policy in the wider context of sustainable food system. So we are a good company because I think we established excellent collaboration along the years with our colleagues in DG SANTE, other DGs. So this will be a conversation to be all together.
Thank you. I had, but you can think about it. That was about the cooperation and the width of the cooperation. And if you think that CAP is a big archipelago of things, so the cooperation has also to do with patchwise cooperation, but also broader cooperation. But you need not to respond immediately, but you can think about it, because I give back the word to see if you had something to say from the basis of the legal structure that you presented and the moves of the circumstances and what you refer to as production relevant issues. So we will get an answer to what you said now on CAP. And please, it's still your time.
Okay, so I think thanks to Fabio. As he's been saying, we've already been working in the current CAP to see how we can make sure that there is more synergy between the CAP and then what happens outside the CAP. So if I take one example, maybe animal welfare is a good one, no? Because we've been trying to make sure that when the member states set out their strategic plans, they factor into it animal welfare. We're also elaborating indicators on animal welfare, which then we will be able to enforce through the CAP, but also through our regulatory framework. So I think there already is work underway to make sure that there's a synergy between the different approaches. I think, as Fabio said, it's the way to go. No, we only have to increase that cooperation over the coming months. The work that we've had so far, I think, shows that we need to be very careful of the links. It's a bumpy political climate, no? At the moment, I said that because we're going into the elections in Europe, but always in this area, it's difficult. Fabio said the farmers are always asking us for more support. I think, unfortunately, as well, the politics have turned it into, we're trying to do things against the farmers, but that's not the case. And what I always say is, the farmers are the solution at the end of the day. So hence this plea for more dialogue around it. I mean, the changes are difficult and the farmers need to be supported in them, but I think they recognize that the change is needed. They're concerned about making sure that the regulation has the alternative tools for them. So if I go back to pesticides, it's about, what are you doing in terms of making sure that the authorization of the alternatives takes place quickly enough, that they're available on markets across the whole of the EU, because some of the smaller member states simply don't have products that are put onto the market there. So we're trying to make improvements in the regulatory process. And this is a joint work that we have to do with member states, because the Commission approves the active substances, but then the member states actually authorize the products that go onto the market in their member states. So what I see in my experience the last few years is that we really have to up that cooperation. We have to get resources in the right place. We have to get people who've got the right qualifications as well, because now we need many more microbiologists than we might have needed in the past. No, so I think overall, and there again, maybe that's where Euragri can play a part in terms of understanding the science, the developments, and making sure that we have the right expertise in place. I mean, we're trying to fund member states to have more scientists with the right expertise. We really need, and I know that Ireland overall is not a big country, but I mean, you do have, you're very open to research and development. You do have good scientists. You have people who can really contribute, and I would urge you to help us to do that wherever you can, because if you can make a contribution at European level, then it can really help in a big way. But I mean, Ireland very well knows that. I think it's one of the things that you've done ever since you joined the EU. But I mean, in this area, I would plead as well to get the scientists in and helping us wherever possible.
Thank you. And now we have 1 minute for Fabio and saying something clever, I hope, about collaboration or anything that you think is important.
Yeah. I will try to close the circle here, because when you say cooperation in the context of the common agricultural policy, there always a bulb, the lights up, because cooperation is one of the key words. And also delivering support to farmers, wider rural communities. And in fact, through the common agricultural policy, we support also specifically a cooperation project that brings together all the actors, can bring all the actors of the agri-food chain together in order to think about what opportunities and challenges farmers are facing and devise innovative solutions to deliver to them. So basically, we're already making this cooperation a reality on the ground in order to speed up the transition. We're seeing with pleasure that this kind of projects, at least in the plans of the member states, almost tripled in numbers. So we are expecting almost more than 6,000 of the cooperation projects focused on innovation to be launched in the next 5 years. So it's all a promising avenue, I would say, and I hope this will also continue in the next CAP.
Thank you. And I took note that you gave it an institutional type of slant in your presentation, and you laughed at the right place also. So that was nodding for you. Let's see if we have one question. Or are they stunned over there in the Zoom? Oh, the Zoom are stunned. And I think then maybe they are sitting there and just waiting for the applause for the presentation. And thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
And welcome, continuing to be with us on the session if you want. If need be, you have probably other business also to do. So now we go to the last presentation, and this is also from the Commission, Karen Fabry, and she has a presentation. It's also virtual. Okay, so that's nice. Then we are sort of a little going back and forth. And you are not alone out there in this sort of Zoom world. You are most welcome in the form you are coming to us. And let's see, you're Deputy Head of Unit Bioeconomy and Food Systems. Things that we are heavily now discussing. I hope you heard the other presentations earlier. Healthy Planet Directorate, DG Research and Innovation. And I will add old connections to that DG part for earlier relations, and looking very much forward to how you will see the things from that DG. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Uno, and I'm very grateful for the invitation to be with you today, albeit virtually. Apologies for not being able to be with you physically in Dublin. I'm going to, yes, indeed, share my screen to use a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm just going to activate that now. Please do let me know if I am successful. There we go. Can you see my screen? I presume you can see my screen. Very good. All right. So I'm Karen Fabry. As Uno said, I'm Deputy Head of a unit called Bioeconomy and Food Systems. And I'm going to do a bit of storytelling today. I'm going to tell you about our Food 2030 initiative and how a strategic approach to research and innovation policy can deliver impact and set directionality for the transition towards sustainable food systems. So firstly, I'm going to tell you what Food 2030 is all about, and then I'm going to tell you how we're deploying it in Horizon Europe. And then I'm going to mention a new initiative of ours called Regional Innovation Balance for Bioeconomy and Food Systems, and then I'm going to wrap up with a few take-home messages. So what's Food 2030? This is an initiative we developed already back in, I would say, 2016. It's basically a framework for research and innovation policy to future-proof our food systems that connects all the different sectors. So from food production to processing, packaging, logistics, distribution, healthy people, and all the related waste streams. And basically it underlines the need for a systemic approach to future-proofing our food systems by structuring, connecting, and scaling up research and innovation, and providing evidence for related policies and solutions to what we call our four priorities, our four overarching priorities, which cover nutrition for sustainable, healthy diets, climate smart and environmentally sustainable food systems, circularity and resource efficiency, and finally, innovation and empowerment of communities. And we'd very much like to achieve those priorities through the various drivers we have at hand. So research breakthroughs, innovation and investment, open science, and international collaboration. And so it all started in 2015, as I mentioned, as a result of the World Expo that took place in Italy, in Milan, that was focused on feeding the planet and energy for life. And since then, well, we've had a whole number of high-level conferences bringing together colleagues from DG Agri and DG SANTE in particular, to see how best to advance this research and innovation policy that was meant to be very holistic. So the first event took place in 2016, and throughout this process, we've also set up two high-level expert groups. We've made a whole series of reports, and the next step really is the conference we'll be holding in a few days, weeks from now, that I'll tell you a little bit more about later. And just to say that, you know, we were advocating the urgency to transform food systems already back then. And we like to think that some of the work we did, at least by bringing the stakeholders and research community together, some of that really did underpin a lot of the thinking that went into the Farm to Fork strategy, which then came out in 2020. My screen is stuck. Yes, so I mentioned that we did a whole slew of publications, and this is just a slide showing just how many of them we did manage to do. It all started with the report on the upper left-hand side, the one with the orange color. That was the staff working document that we released in 2016 as a result of a co-creation process between Commission services. And the one in the center at the middle at the bottom, that's called Food 2030 Pathways for Action. This is the one that we launched in 2020, which has been basically our roadmap to deploy in Horizon Europe. And if I zoom into that report, you'll see what our 10 pathways for action are. And this has basically led to over 100 research and innovation projects to be funded for over 760 million euro. And so here you can see the number of projects in each area. But what was key to identifying these particular themes or leverage points was that on acting on these, we came to the realization that we could achieve co-benefits to nutrition, to climate, to circularity, and to communities, which were our underlying priorities. And another thing that brings all these pathways together is that through them, we're really trying to advocate and foster a systemic approach that does deliver these co-benefits, that fosters inter and transdisciplinarity and multi-actor engagement from farm to fork. And we also underline the importance of place-based approaches that are key to testing, demonstrating, experimenting, deploying, partnering, learning, and sharing. And another thing that underlines these is that we're fostering all types of innovation. This is not just about technology. Food system transformation is a social issue, it's a political issue, it's an economic issue. So we really need to focus all sorts of innovation, social innovation, governance and institutional innovation, business model innovation, technology innovation, and of course, much more. So these are our pathways for action, version 2.0, that we are about to release in the next couple of days, actually, on the occasion of our conference. And to them, they've stayed pretty much the same because we've come to the realization that we're on the right track. But we've added one. We've added pathway 11, which is called zero pollution food systems. And now I'm going to give you just a few examples of the first two, because those are the ones that are the most systemic and least thematic, I would say. And I thought it would be of interest to you today. So our pathway on governance for system change has led to a number of outputs. And one of these was a high-level expert group that we launched on strengthening the science policy interface for improved food systems governance. And this expert group worked over a 1.5-year period. And in 2022, as a contribution to the UN Food Systems Summit process, they delivered basically their recommendations, their findings, looking at, what were the science policy interfaces out there at international level, and to what extent should they be working together. And they underline that we do really suffer from an existing fragmentation, that there's a definite lack of a systems approach to deal with the complexity, and that far more inter and transdisciplinarity was needed. And that science policy interfaces for food systems should be enhanced to meet the challenges and facilitate the transmission of research results into policy. And finally, that a network of international food system science panels should provide or could provide coordination, independence, and scientific rigor. And as a follow-up of this activity, we're now working very closely with the University of Montpellier, who has launched what they call the Montpellier Collective Intelligence Process, that is aiming to bring together existing panels like the IPCC, IPBS, and many others to see if we can come up with a coherent message or a coherent way together to look at the food system challenges. Another ambition of ours under the governance pathway was to build a Food 2030 community. And for this, we set up a project, or rather a project has just kicked off, called Clever Food, that is building two networks, one of Food 2030 living labs and another one of Food 2030 projects. And we hope that there are some amongst you that will be willing to join this initiative, because by joining this collaboration network, it's implied that you do embrace a systemic and multi-actor approach to tackle complexity, and that you support the transformation of the European food systems. And we look forward to working very closely with Clever Food for the next few years. Again, as part of our governance pathway, we've done work on, or we've motivated projects to deal with citizen science and societal engagement. We have, for instance, a project called Foster that will implement summer schools focused on integrating disciplines in citizen science, and also fostering co-learning processes with regional citizen initiatives. And again, under Clever Food, there's going to be a traveling exhibition through Europe, also targeting presidency cities that will bring together food systems transitions for society. In a topic that is actually currently being evaluated, we hope to set up a scientific network, a food system science scientific network, that is developing to develop an interdisciplinary and inclusive pan-European academic network on food system science that will integrate social sciences and humanities, designers, engineers, natural and applied sciences, with the aim of federating these research performers across Europe to work with things. So we look very much forward to the evaluation of that topic and to the launching of this scientific network. Another action under our governance pathway is the buildup of the Horizon Europe Partnership on Sustainable Food Systems for People, Planet, and Climate. And the objective there has been to align and boost research and innovation investments by bringing in the long-term commitment and funding of member states to create a joint-up scientific research and innovation agenda. And the work on this has started already some years back, already in 2019, when we first started to talk about it. And we very much look forward to early 2024 when we expect the partnership to be launched. And this partnership has been built up with the commitment of many stakeholders, and in the lead of this is the SCAR, the Standing Committee for Agriculture Research, and in particular the Food Systems Working Group. This work has been supported by a dedicated project called Food Paths, and we're really very happy that this partnership will soon be launched. A few words on urban food systems. We did a workshop not so long ago with our urban food systems projects, and we discovered very interesting findings that out of the projects we have over 154 city initiatives in 41 countries in Europe and in Africa. And this is only thanks to 7 Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020 projects. And so what's happening in urban areas, in cities and towns, is just incredible. And this is thanks to the support and directionality we've been able to give to bring food systems down to place-based action. Then now I'm going to say a few words on Horizon Europe. So that's the world's largest public R&I program. It's going from 2021 to 2027. Divided into 3 pillars. I'm going to talk mostly about Pillar 2, which is the pillar that I'm working in. It's made up of several clusters. I work on Cluster 6, which is entitled Food, Bioeconomy, Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Environment. But there's also Pillar 1 and Pillar 3. Pillar 1 being Excellent Science, and Pillar 3, Innovative Europe. And both of these other pillars are welcoming bottom-up related research and innovation activities. So Cluster 6 is divided into a number of, let's say, impacts and destinations. It's our intervention logic. It's not so simple to follow, but if you look hard, there is a logic in there. We're particularly interested in impact number 4, which is food and nutrition security for all from sustainable food systems from farm to fork. And if you look into our work programs, you'll see that there's a number of these destinations, and it's under destination 2 that most of the research and innovation calls and topics that relate to food and agriculture also can be found under destination 2, called Fair, Healthy, and Environmentally Friendly Food Systems from Primary Production to Consumption. But there's also some very good food-related topics in destination 6, in particular those that deal with urban food systems, and under destination 7, which deal with governance. So if you are looking for where to look for interesting calls, please remember to go beyond destination 2 and also look at destination 6 and 7, and in the future also destination 4 with our zero pollution pathway. I have some statistics here that show the number of topics per destination. Again, you can see more or less how the funds are distributed throughout the different destinations, and if you put them together, you can see that quite a bit of resources or investments are going towards agriculture, food and nutrition related topics. Just here, I have some deadlines. So the 2024 calls were released on the 17th of October, and depending on the calls, you have different submission deadlines, but more or less, they take place around February 2024. Just a quick mention about the European Research Council, Pillar 1, I mentioned that before. They did a very good portfolio analysis of bottom-up projects that relate to Food 2030, and they found that they have 102 ERC-funded projects for over 228 million euros, spanning the periods of FP7 and Horizon 2020 that relate to our Food 2030 pathway. So the message here is that a lot of work can be done also under Pillar 1 that connects to food system transition. And I would say the same also for Pillar 3 under the European Innovation Council, which through their Pathfinder Transition and Accelerator programs also welcomes innovation activities that are relevant to food system transition. A few words now on our regional innovation valleys for bioeconomic food systems. We launched this as part of the new European Innovation Agenda, and we've created a case or a thematic use case on regional innovation valleys for bioeconomy and food systems. And here the objective is really to scale and speed up solutions in technological areas for bioeconomy food and welcome place-based innovations at higher TRL levels, allowing innovations to bring ideas to the market. Here we'd like to increase interconnectedness among existing regional innovation ecosystems and also to promote a dialogue with member states and regions on the potential and future funding for these valleys. So we invite you to connect with our regional ecosystems of innovation. We have a dedicated call. So there is a regional innovation funding call for 100 million euros under Horizon Europe and 70 million from the interregional innovation investment together. This call closed on the 17th of October and we received over 50 proposals that are now being evaluated. So we'll let you know when the time comes just how many of those were really relevant to food system transition. Now, we do have a dedicated call under our 2024 work program. It's a coordination support action to develop for the development and transfer of concept of sustainable circular bioeconomy solutions in startup villages, including food systems. And so if you're interested in working with us on this, please do have a look and consider sending us a good proposal. So some conclusions and what's next? Well, given the policy context, urgency and complexity of food systems transition, yes, science, research and innovation is more important than ever. Research and innovation policy is a neutral, multi-actor convening space to address systemic issues in particular and to meet the ambitions of the Green Deal. And Horizon Europe provides significant funding and directionality in support of a systemic transition towards resilient and sustainable food systems. Just a mention of our next strategic plan, which is for the period 2025 to 2027. We're still finalizing it. We hope that it will be released sometime in the first quarter of 2024. And as a next step, imminent next step, I wish to invite you to our next Food 2030 conference taking place here in Brussels and online. That is called Green and Resilient Food Systems. We hope to see you there. And I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you. I would say very impressive also. It's a sort of heavy movement on the train, and you have covered it very nicely. Many things are going on. My first question in seeing this sort of multitude, if you would see it as a sort of decision pyramid, there are sort of tops of the pyramids, sort of the super things deciding how the rest are further down. How would your hierarchization of what is important, I wouldn't say the others are less important, but more sort of supportive types of actions. So what would you pick out? Let's give you three big things, messages to our discussions here in Dublin. What's the top of the pyramid? Maybe there is some reflection on this juicy presentation on what is going on, and also the forthcoming December meeting, I guess. So, who would like to ask something or reflect on something? Yes, please. You are the first. And as usual, present yourself and what you want to ask.
Thank you, Karen. Can people hear me? Yeah. I guess I wanted to comment and ask a question around the research and innovation agenda. I should say that I'm from Scotland's Rural College. I wanted to ask a question around and try to to return to Uno's question as well. Around research and innovation policy development, the importance of skills, but also perhaps, which we didn't hear much about, is the role of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship in that innovation ecosystem.
Well, that was a very simple, direct question. So entrepreneurs is on the list now. What would you say?
Shall I jump in here? Well, I think there is going to be a definite need for skills building in view of the challenges ahead. And of course, we are very keen to foster entrepreneurship. We're working very closely with the EIT Food that is basically bringing together the knowledge triangle, so business, education, entrepreneurship, to foster innovation and skills and entrepreneurship skills also relevant to food systems transition. So let's say that EIT Food is part of the family, it's part of the puzzle of research, innovation, and entrepreneurship that is working in our R&I landscape. We also hope that these regional innovation valleys will have an impact on fostering entrepreneurship. That's one of the, let's say, criterion that ought to be embedded in these regional innovation.
Thank you also, because now when you answered this interesting question of entrepreneurship, you used your word, and that was family. So I tried to squeeze on you a pyramid, and you avoided responding on a pyramid. And now we have your answer. The answer is family.
There is no pyramid, indeed. It's actually quite I would say, a rich landscape of interactions between different, let's say, networks, different initiatives at different scales, some working locally, some working regionally, others nationally and internationally. It's quite a complex landscape.
I think it goes quite nicely for us in Euragri, and sort of the family is gathered. It's family meeting here, not a pyramid meeting. So that comes nicely also to our operations here in Dublin. So more, I don't see any hands here. How are we operating out there in the world, in the Zoom world? Are they active out there?
Yes, there is one question around how do you see food system transformation in practice? For example, how to translate scientific outcomes for consumers.
Oh, transformation practice. Did you get the essence of the question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Orle. How to get messages across to consumers. I think we have to get better at fostering transdisciplinary research, which by definition is research that will also bring in societal aspects and engagement with consumers or citizens, where we integrate, let's say, the societal engagement upstream and throughout the research process. That really helps to make research more of the societally relevant, and to ensure that what comes out of it is also, more digestible to different groups. And of course, when we have to get better at communicating. I mean, when I say we, and I mean everybody has to get better at communicating. Scientists have to get better at communicating. Policymakers have to get better at communicating, and being able to pass messages that are often complex yet clear. And by fostering research and innovation projects that are closer to the ground, closer to where people live and work, it's a way to raise awareness. It's a way to get them interested in science. It's a way to, just get people more engaged in the issues that matter.
I think we have time for one more question. And we give preference if there is someone here in the physical Dublin But obviously, there is a question there. Yeah.
Thanks. And just following on that question, Maeve Henshin from Teagasc. The networks that you were talking about establishing, they're very much focused on academics. So what are your views and how do you plan on involving the voices of others then to facilitate that transdisciplinarity, or is that just been left to the research community? Just your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Well, apart from the network of the academic network, which evidently is an academic network, the other networks that are being established are not academic networks. These are networks of projects and living labs, which go, which extend far beyond, let's say, research players, but really welcome a wide variety of actors. So I would say that they can be learning grounds, demonstration grounds for transdisciplinarity, and I hope that making use also. We have another tool that I didn't talk about because, well, the time is limited, but we also have the bioeconomy strategy, and within the bioeconomy strategy, we have a particular action on education and skills building. And I think it's through this, it presents an opportunity through which we can do many things that relate to awareness raising and engagement and education. So I think that's it's an opportunity that we can look forward to in the future.
So that sounded like a sort of final verdict type of a position, rounding up not only your presentation, but also the morning session. And on top of that, perfectly in time, what do you say about that? I think we give both the present people here in Dublin a great applaud for interest, to you who have spoken so well and super insightful to us, and also saying that we are still on, the conference here is still going on, so those who want more of these things, they would stay. And we who are physically here, we go for lunch. And we hope that you who have spoken over the net also go to lunch at some time proper for you. So the session is closed.